as lending services for the customer base. And our focus really is trying to make it easier and accessible for a larger mass audience.
My name is Simon Dixon. You saw my presentation earlier. If you weren't, I'm the co-founder of BnkToTheFuture.com. We're an online investment platform and facilitated investments in equity in Coinbase, Kraken, Bitstamp, Bitfinex, about 120 other companies that have all made our industry. Spoke at the first Bitcoin conference in Europe in 2011. Wrote a book called Bank to the Future, which was the first published book that included Bitcoin.
I'm Raghav Chavla. I work at Fidelity Investments, which is a large, fully diversified financial services company. I personally got it, I've been a Bitcoiner for a long time. I first learned about it in 2009, and I got the crypto stuff started at Fidelity, and now I work on creating new products in the crypto blockchain space.
Awesome, thanks so much, guys. So we're going to go through several different themes during this panel. Obviously, the concept of investment in the blockchain space is very broad. It could be anywhere from VC to institutional investment to retail products to commercial products. You know, we could go on and on. This panel could go on for hours, literally, I'm sure, with all of us on stage. So we'll go through a couple of different themes, and we'll hopefully give everyone a little bit of a taste of each of these different areas. So I want to start out with talking about the kind of market sentiment around crypto asset management. So it's probably more directed at Raghav. So obviously we've had crypto winter now. We've had the come up, I guess, from that, and we're now moving into the next phase of a more grown-up crypto. So what have you found has been the market sentiment, or what is the attitude in our institutional markets as it?
Yeah, I think the sentiment is bullish. We actually, if you Google it, we published some research that we conducted as well, which has a lot more data than I can share in a couple minutes. But yeah, I think the sentiment's there, it's bullish. I think right now the industry is in sort of a core infrastructure building phase, and because when you're talking about large institutional players, they need that solid, trustful, bulletproof infrastructure that they want to operate on, and I think that's being built right now. I think the industry is kind of doing a really good job building that, and we're trying to do our part there in order to kind of provide those services.
Sure.
It's interesting, if you look at Green State Street, they recently published a survey where 94% of their customers have some exposure to digital assets. So they're coming in, and stuff like Fidelity's doing, TraceStation's doing, Bank to the Future, they're paving the way for more familiar experiences and making it a little bit easier for these firms to get involved.
And I think there's an interesting juxtaposition between big firms like Fidelity, and then bringing in smaller startups who are enabling others, or enabling new customers to be able to come into the market versus typical retail customer. So let's talk about on-off ramps. So obviously this is in the consumer piece, it's a little bit more complicated, but in when you're finding people who want to get some exposure to crypto in their portfolio, what are you finding are the best on-off ramps, or what are the challenges really associated with that?
Sure, so I think we can answer from our perspective, which is underneath the TraceStation brand, we have multiple asset classes, huge customer base, similar Fidelity, and for us, it's really trying to teach people there's an on-ramp, there's a way to access crypto underneath the mature brand. Some of the things we see from our customer base that are crossing over from stocks into crypto is that they tend to use whole units. They don't know they can trade fractional shares, which is an educational event. But we think our position really is on-ramp is really ultimately help bridge the gap for traditional traders into crypto, and then also expand crypto traders into some other asset classes like futures, equities, and options.
Sure. And Simon, you've taken kind of more of the equity route in enabling people to invest in these companies in particular versus crypto assets more generally. So.
Yeah, but I can talk for some of our portfolio companies. As we've always seen, there's two-tiered markets, regulated markets. So if you're going through an exchange now, you have to onboard, you have to do KYC, you have to do all of that stuff. And then once you're in, we've found that the job of someone is to get into crypto in the way it was originally designed, which is the unregulated market, the peer-to-peer trade, the ability to own your own money, the ability to spend your own money, and those two we've been investing in both sides since the beginning, because it's one of the interesting things. For example, take a case study like the Telegram ICO. Regulations aside, what happened was what they're going through right now. But they onboarded $1.7 billion of US dollars. It wasn't Bitcoin, it wasn't crypto. That was US dollars that now, once, if whatever happens next, those tokens are issued, it tends to get very sticky. So they might be converted into a stable coin, or they might be put into Bitcoin, and then people use sound money as a use case or investment proposition, or they might keep it. But what we found was that the more and more people that come on board through these ramps, these different mechanisms, these different funding products, then they tend to stay there, and the crypto market cap just grows and grows and grows because it's just too hard to get back, it's too painful to get back. And at the end of the day, fiat is the largest regulated Ponzi scheme in the history of humankind.
I'm sure someone would disagree. But that might be a different panel. We can talk about that later. I think that a big part of on off-ramps also would be capability management. So obviously we're talking about Fidelity. You've announced different things. You're rolling out new products. The digital asset program at Fidelity has been going the longest, I would say, as of almost any institution of these sort of traditional institutions. How have you found internally the capability management of, I have someone who works at Fidelity and I need to learn how to onboard customers. So from providing that service to your customers, if you want to provide it to your customers, how have you found that process of internally?
Yeah, so I think again, so we've been at this for a while. Like we kind of started kicking off slowly our activities in 2014, and we were a full-blown team dedicated to this stuff in early 2015. And we've run a lot of educational programs. We have something called the Bits Blocks Club, which has over 10,000 members because we have 10,000 employees. And that's all about education. We bring people, we give talks of developers and CEOs of other companies, and all kinds of different talks. And then we have just training programs there as well. And so a lot of our people have been over the years kind of had that knowledge of how to deal with assets, what they are, what they mean, how to actually explain that to customers in a way that they can understand. And that's actually another reason why there's actually several reasons why we started with our institutional custody product. Because again, like over the years, we were experimenting with a lot of things, and most of the things that we were experimenting with didn't see the light of day. Like what we actually push out the door is the funnel is really, really narrow.
Yeah.
And we thought, one, institutional investors are more sophisticated, so it's easier for them to understand, and we don't want our retail customers to really be taking on risks that they don't fully understand yet. So that was one of the reasons why we started there. But then also, we thought just out in the market, there isn't, we're talking about on-ramps, there were fewer on-ramps for large institutions to get into crypto. So we started with the buy and hold product, and of course we have a lot of people that's part of that business unit, is that helping these institutions to kind of understand what they're getting into and help them hold it in the way they like and kind of understand fully the risks of their investment.
We haven't had that big a problem for us. I think operations is an underappreciated job. If you do your job right,
operations is always an underappreciated job, sir.
And everybody knows when something rolls out, but we found that having the long-term history of running multiple asset classes, teaching somebody who knows how to do PayPal, KYC, this for crypto, fairly straightforward. You've got your certain banned list. It's a little bit expanded for crypto. Teaching people how to actually engage with the market structure. They're professionals. It's really easy just to add them to their asset class when you have a team of professionals to work with it.
Yeah, because then you're taking this established, well-understood product and then rolling it out to people. It may be matched with something else, but it is understood on the front end. I think how have you found capability within your own firm figuring out which investments to make or how to sort of pitch those to people? Not necessarily about pitching to retail investors directly, but about how to get that capability within your firm so that you can make those decisions properly.
Yeah, it's investing in this industry is really tricky. It's tricky because every time I've applied logic to this industry, it's cost me a lot of money. And some of my best investments have been things that I just thought would never have done that. So the only approach that I've learned is the reason why we created Bank to the Future in the first place came from an investment thesis, which was I believe that every single financial product is about to be disrupted one product at a time. I don't know which companies are going to succeed, but I want to invest in as many teams and as many products that are likely to do it, diversify really widely, and be surprised and not get too attracted to ideas. I've seen, for example, I came from Bitcoin, and I'm a true believer in Bitcoin as sound money, and there's no one in anything that's competing with that. However, if I let that theory get in the way of me not being open-minded to other things that are coming along, I've seen a lot of Bitcoin maximalists miss out on Ethereum and other things because it's now a protocol for DeFi. And then Ethereum is now probably missing out on other things because they're thinking about, well, we've got this wrapped up, but maybe these blockchains, they don't serve every use case. And I remember in the early days of Bitcoin, we were very excited about putting everything on Bitcoin, doing colored coins and assets and all these different things. I mean, it turned out that actually these blockchains need to really focus on doing one thing really well, and that might come at the expense of doing something else well. And
well, then you have the ability to create traction, and if you have traction, then you can have it.
And in terms of capabilities, it's also just leveraging your strengths, which means it's different when you're a startup versus a big company, because a big company, you already have a lot of capabilities in place. So for example, in our case, we rolled out our custody product as the first thing, and then now we're offering execution services because we've been around the block multiple times in smart execution and in the traditional security space, and we can apply those capabilities in the crypto space, which is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and that kind of segues nicely into our next topic about payment and settlement. We're talking about. So obviously there's a lot of hype around stablecoins right now. Canada is rolling out their new stablecoin in 2 or 3 weeks, I think. There's a company in Canada, not Canada. And I think that's what have you seen? I guess this is really for any of you. The appetite around stablecoins as a payment and settlement mechanism.
It really goes to how. So originally the infrastructure was set up where everything was fully funded, and as we start to deal with more mature players like BnkToTheFuture or Fidelity, we start to already have some level of trust with each other, and when you start doing transactions with each other, it becomes unruly to have to do every transaction fully better, because at the end of the day, if we can just net up our transactions and then sell with each other, it's so much more operationally efficient, it's arguably less risky because capital is only moving around set times a day. But it allows us to do things like extend credit or work on credit terms, get comfortable with lending, collateralize, uncollateralized, get comfortable with doing different trading credit lines. So using stablecoins also helps where we can exceed the Fedwire. We can interact with each other after the Fedwire. Although we haven't really found too hard of a problem dealing with dollars or stablecoins, both seem to work well for us.
Yeah, so I should say, as a shareholder in Bitfinex, who created the stablecoin Tether and is still dominating the space, and Circle, who did USDC. I think, so I recently did a roadshow in China, and Tether is just the most useful currency in China. Amongst people, like the ability to just pay for the whole roadshow, just get all these things settled really quick, it would have been impossible to do the roadshow at the pace and speed we were trying to do it if it wasn't for a stablecoin. But I think the stablecoins are actually going to play a much bigger role than just retail. I actually believe that it's going to be something that central banks use to actually allow banks to go bust in the future. I believe that central banks issuing debt-free currency rather than outsourcing the money supply to private banks that create debt-based money is actually that we're in an environment where they don't have interest rates anymore. They don't really have quantitative easing anymore. That's coming to the end. They don't have monetary policy anymore. The next thing that they've got, the only tool, is they can't bail out or bail in because there'll be riots in the streets. The only thing they've got left is for you, if your bank, their credit risk gets too high, you to go to your central bank and replace your bank account with a stablecoin issued by the central bank, and let the bank go bust. And then essentially it's not inflationary, you're not creating new money in the supply, you're just replacing one form of debt-based money with debt-free money. But there is a catch, it's a really scary world. At least for banks, your money's one step removed from the central bank. There's going to be automated tax collection, stopping you at the border, knowing all your costs. We're headed to a pretty nasty world with these stablecoins, but I do believe they're going to be the solution to the next financial crisis.
But I would say that and I'll toss this one to Raghab, I would say in the consumer markets, this understanding of I don't want to get to whether there should be banks or not, but in the consumer market, there's still, at least right now, a want or a need for some sort of either some sort of product, financial or technical, could be, to take care of someone's money. We can't. It would be great if we all could have be our own bank or have our own bank, but not everyone really wants that. So I think arguably not everyone should. But do you want to comment a little bit on the consumer aspect of that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there, like in terms of stable coins and custody, whether it's self-custody or non-custodial, or so there's Bitcoin came along and it brought with it so many different things simultaneously, and people look at it as different things. So some people look at Bitcoin as a new form of money, which is not controlled by government, and so it's got fixed monetary policy, so it's kind of competes against the US dollar and other currencies in that sense. A lot of people just see it as an investment because they see that it increases in value somehow. They don't know why, but it does, so they just want in. And they don't care about, and then there's other people who care about just the purely transactional and be your own bank and quick settlement and peer-to-peer transactions and privacy, etc. So I think there's these multiple lenses that people look at these technologies with, and if you just want to get exposure to the asset for financial gain, you don't care about the custody yourself. In fact, you'll pay somebody to custody your Bitcoin on your behalf, so you don't have to deal with it, because cybersecurity is difficult even for cybersecurity professionals. So for the average person who's not technical, they don't want to deal with hardware wallets or paper wallets or whatever. And then even the stablecoin thing, I feel it is related to this question, because a lot of people don't think of Bitcoin as money. They think of Bitcoin as some asset, and they think of US dollars or something else as money. And in fact, again, even in the early days of us experimenting and ideating with Infidelity, there were so many awesome use cases that we came up with that we could do, leveraging blockchain tech or Bitcoin. But most people want to settle their transactions in US dollar. They don't want to settle in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency. And so having a dollar on chain makes a lot of use cases possible. Even things like atomic swaps or faster clearing and settlement only happens when both sides of the transactions are on chain, and you can atomically swap them. It doesn't work if you're sending your security on chain, but then you're wiring money on the other side. Then you're still kind of stuck in the old paradigm. And of course, another risk that stablecoins bring is that they are actually, so unless they're issued by the central bank themselves, they're actually different from that. And then so we've seen that in the past as well, where you have a float between or spread between the stable coin, which is supposed to be stable, but it's not really stable, so it's trading at 98 cents on the dollar. So there's those types of issues. And again, when you're dealing with billions of dollars, it's a pretty big spread. And so that dollar is not really a dollar, and then now you have multiple stable coins competing with each other. So there's counterparty risk associated with every stable coin, which gets priced in eventually. And then I think going to the future, I mean, with stuff like Libra and stuff like central bank digital currencies, I think we're headed to this future of, in the past we had government money and that was money, and nobody thought of money as anything different from what your government tells you is money. But I think now Bitcoin brought the decentralized money of the people, as it were, and so we had people money and government money, and now we're going to start seeing corporation money, like projects like Libra, and then people get to decide what kind of money they want to use. But right now, that's a long ways away, and most people think of just regular fiat money as money.
Yeah, and I think that all of those different parties having the ability to create some sort of medium of exchange or sort of value that they exist in creates a lot of opportunity for risk. So do you want to, James, comment on
Sure.
risk both to the consumer and to the institution?
I think I would first comment on the stablecoins. If you're somebody who's not an investor or not used to risk, it's an easier step to go into a dollar-backed or stablecoin than to try to take Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So whereas it does work as a nice, easy on-ramp for customers, the introduction of risk is an interesting way to look at it because counterparties need the ability to have some level of trust and offer some level of credit lines. And as we start looking at our business around how we're going to offer monetization of customer assets at rest, for brokers and for other firms and banks, the assets at rest are a huge portion of the revenue, and sharing that revenue with the customer becomes extremely important. And stablecoins becomes a really nice way for our customers to, hey, if I'm holding dollars and I'm not earning any interest rate, if I decide to hold stablecoins, I might be able to earn an interest rate larger than the bank or otherwise. So it's kind of a nice step forward, but beyond that transaction, there are levels of risk that the various firms need to deal with, and making sure you're working with the right people. Like so Fidelity and I work together. It's a different exchange and a different level of trust than if us and a different firm would work together, for example.
And the key takeaway is the ability to choose your risk. And then that brings up the next question that most people don't want to choose their risk, so they'll outsource that to a middle person to choose which stable coin to be. But I think the fact that we now have the ability to say, do I trust my money in a bank? And that is speculation. There's a credit risk at the bank. Do I trust the government to manage my money? Now I have the choice of a fixed monetary policy that's highly unlikely to change with Bitcoin, or do I trust Facebook with my with the way they're managing this? The thing that comes from this is choice and the ability to pick.
The thing that's so important is that ability to choose. We have options now as consumers. Do I want money that I can use just in the US, or do I want money that I can use globally, or maybe in my ecosystem? That choice is so important.
Absolutely, and I think, like, again, in places like the US, a lot of people don't really think of that choice as being that important. But if you're in some other country that has hyperinflation or something, that's a very obvious choice. Like, you're looking for any other option, and having any option is great. Over here, people will be like, okay, risk and management and whatever, but like, for a lot of people, this is like saving their lives.
But I think with choice also comes a really big, and I know you talked before, we're talking about education, about the need for consumers to understand what they're actually investing in. You talked about that. And with choice, obviously comes this barrier of education. So on barriers, I know we could talk all day, and I'm sure the rest of us will then go on to talk all the rest of the day about this. But so I wanted to start cover two more things just before we run out of time. Missing pieces. What do you think could be in your business, could be in the broader institutional market specifically? What do you think is the missing piece? Either something we're not doing well, or something that the market deeply needs that doesn't have right now.
So for us, we're looking for more standardized and mature repo markets, the ability to actually engage with counterparties and do transactions to monetize the assets at rest. There's not great platforms, there's not great clearing methodologies, there's not great ways to interact. And when we want to offer something to our customers and help them monetize their assets, it's really important that we have a platform and a product to be able to rely on. And that's the piece that we see that's missing, and it's a huge area of focus for us, is to be able to help the customers monetize their assets at rest and really make sure that space in the market.
Just really make it all into the active capital. Simon?
Two things come to mind. It's really this whole concept of, right, we now have the ability to own our own money, but that creates a ginormous problem in owning your own money. One of the big problems that I'm foreseeing is inheritance. It's just a really, really tricky problem to solve with owning your own money. And do you trust the lawyer with part of your, do you trust your partner with it? Do you not trust? Do you trust? And it's a really, really tricky problem.
And that personally is one, but obviously for large companies, it's one as well. I'm a Canadian, and we're still a little bit hurting about this whole Quadriga situation. So that it becomes a whole problem for companies. If there is only one opportunity or if there's only one role for someone to custody, then
and I think that's the bit the SEC is struggling with all the ETFs, all the security tokens. It's all about what happens when those get stolen.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would point out like a particular, deep glaring hole in the industry, because I think, people are working on everything. So I mean, some problems are not really solved, but that doesn't mean people aren't trying to solve them. Like this inheritance problem, there's other products or market infrastructure pieces that may not be mature enough. But that's the beauty of decentralization, that there's people out there building stuff, and there's low barriers to entry, and you can collaborate much more easily with blockchain technologies and the internet and stuff like that. So I think that all is happening, and it may take some time, but it'll get there. But I mean, I think what you said earlier about education, I think that's the most important piece, because one, there's so much activity happening. There's so many different concepts from like finance and technology and game theory and behavioral economics, and like there's so many different things that people need to understand to really wrap their heads around, like what's happening with this whole decentralization movement. And there's more choice than ever. And so when you have a lot of choice, you need to be educated in order to make it the right choice, and especially when there's a lot of incentive right now for people to spread misinformation, like with ICO scams and stuff. It's like, oh, this one is the latest and greatest and it's better, and people are trying to convince you to give them your money, and if you're not educated, you don't really can't separate innovation from scamming. It's really hard for you to figure out where to allocate your money. So I think education is the most important thing that people should be focusing on.
Okay, so we're nearly out of time. One more sort of point for each of you. The next sort of 6 months, 6 to 12. I would say 6 to 12 months, but that's a little bit far ahead. We might all not be here by then. So in the next 6 months, what is a project that is not yours that you are very excited about? An investment product, could be a company.
Yeah, a product that is not mine that I'm excited about is still Bitcoin. And I think the next 6 months is actually really interesting. I never thought we'd get here, but we are now in a scenario where on February the 1st, we're due to find out whether the person that claims they are Satoshi Nakamoto, Craig Wright, whether he owns the private key or not because of the court filing. And we have a prediction market for whether people believe it or not with Bitcoin SV that's crashing and Bitcoin's pumping. And what happens when if Craig Wright doesn't own that private key? There's 1.1 million Bitcoin that's probably locked up with 2 dead people. And therefore we've had a significant contraction in the money supply leading up to halving, which I believe will be the next Bitcoin bull market. So it turns out that the person claiming to be Satoshi Nakamoto could be responsible for the next bull market in Bitcoin and the crash in Bitcoin SV.
Exciting times.
So I think for us, we're pretty far down the rabbit hole on trading products. We are really excited about the different derivative products that are coming out on CME, on RSX, on ICE. We're very excited about the different products that are coming out around clearing and settlement, and how the market matures to think, is it going to be these kind of slush funds that guarantee trades? Is it going to be the firms that guarantee the clearing and settlement of the trades? So watching how those things unfold in the next 6 months, we're really excited for us.
Yeah, I think I'm going to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Simon said, because I think I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I have been for a long time, and I think I'll continue to be for a long time coming. But I think right now what's happening is, so remember 5, 7, 8 years ago, we used to talk about nation state actors and how they may try to attack, suppress, and maybe they mine for their sovereign wealth funds, or maybe they come up with their competing things. And that's playing out right now, and that's so exciting and interesting to just watch. And on top of that, we have these weird financial conditions with interest rates going to zero, and just crazy stuff happening politically and in traditional financial markets. And now you have something like Bitcoin, and people are paying attention to it as a real thing, and people are rethinking the concept of what is money. And countries are trying to experiment with money, and you have corporations coming up with their own money, and you have Bitcoin, but you have a whole bunch of other new cryptocurrencies as well that are decentralized money of the people. So it's just going to be super interesting to watch all that play out. So bring out the popcorn. I think it'll be a great year.
That'll be next 6 months. We'll all be paying very close attention to the 3 of you, and obviously to our exciting space. So thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you, audience, for your attention.
Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you parked at the Miami Tower, you can